commitments. And I think one of the things that I love about Hasina's work is she helps people remember who they really are at the core. Yeah. So we always forget, and we always have a chance to be reminded. And one of the things I'd like to do uh, more and more with my career, let's put it that way, with my career and my life, is to remember that who I was yesterday doesn't necessarily define who I am today. And one of the things I've loved about your work is uh, after walking through it myself and then having a chance to feel what it felt like, even as somebody who thought I was pretty decently traveled in transformational work, uh, there was a beautiful relief to that, and you live and breathe that. You really do. You embody that ideal, and looking forward to this. We're gonna have some fun.
Thank you. Well, I received that. And yeah, we're definitely going to have some fun. I am going to share screen so that we can actually get a flavor of the first conversation here, which is, um, just give me a second, speaking aloud, aloud. And that's something that we don't often do because speaking is not just a very little thing. Um, this whole conversation is about giving ourselves permission to be, giving ourselves permission to speak literally and just speak from the heart and also to listen. And it's called the mind massage. It's a mind body spirit conversation. How do we give ourselves permission to be in different ways? I know, Tom, you had some thoughts before the when we last talked. So if you'd like to share this, then we can actually then open it up and interact.
I love the idea of speaking aloud that which we know. Yeah. So especially since it's Heart Day, it's honoring Women's Heart Day. There, it's beautiful. It's actually a perfect context, and each of us finds in the world of chakra alignment, fifth chakra is communication. Yeah, so our throat chakra, which is green, by the way. Uh, sorry, blue. Heart is green, and if we can bring the green to the blue, uh, and then we're speaking aloud, and sometimes it doesn't come out of this thing, and sometimes there is bidirectionality to chakra health, of course, just like there is in any organic, in any of life. There is a turnover and there's a bidirectional multi uh, quantum uh, flow there. So a lot of what is this thing that we think as expression is actually a receptive capacity. And sometimes just being able to know and receive. I love what you said after I said thank you and hello, and you said I received that when I was talking about you, and you walk that. And I think so often we are given the opportunity to interact and to engage, but we're so quite sure of who we are and what we think. A lot of times we can't hear that, and sometimes it's negative stuff that we can't hear, and we rebel against it. Ego protection. Sometimes it's positive stuff, and we also rebel against that by shrugging it off or saying it's no big deal or pretending that we didn't do it. And I think there are benefits to getting in touch with both, which is really great. But that idea of speaking from the heart is, if indeed, excuse me, interesting. I'm clearing my throat. Yeah, must be. I consider that a very healthy space, by the way. When I feel safe, when I feel comfortable, and when I'm in a space where all of a sudden I'm listening, I can hear the sound of my voice differently. I know that the people around me are there as co-creators, right? This is only coming out of me because here I am with you. Yeah. Um, it's not how I was trained, by the way. It's not how I was trained to give scientific presentations. It's not how I was trained to teach medical students. It's not how I was trained to deal with patients and clients. Uh, and there's a place for that. There's a place for that top-down delivery of what is a very workable and pragmatic something. I think one of the magical pieces of a community like this is that we can surprise ourselves. So that's a long way around to say it's the permission to speak out loud, and it's also the permission to speak in a very surprising way, and maybe even hear ourselves as we're saying something that we might not have ever said before, didn't even know we could say. And again, it doesn't have to come out of the mouth, right? But those little lightning bolts of thought that somehow turn themselves into ideas and somehow turn themselves into stammering and trying to figure out how to explain ourselves to our friends and try to figure out how to talk about the dream we just had, all of that, right? That's the stuff of life. And where we're safe, almost always it's a surprise.
And I just love that point that you brought up because, when I said that I received that, the reason I say that is because the tendency has always been for most of my life, and I think particularly for a lot of women, and I'm generalizing here, it's always to, like you said, shrug it off, just say, oh well, and not accept the compliment, not accept the words. So I always say that to remind myself to really internalize it and receive it when it's coming from that good energy, just to receive it. And I think this is such a great place because there's so many different aspects of permission that we want to discuss. I'd love to hear either on chat or one or two people if you want to unmute yourselves and say, do you feel that you truly receive um, someone's good energy, or even the energy of your inner voice saying something great about yourself? Can you truly receive that? And just very short, is it something that you learned, or is it something was it something that you learned in the course of your life? What was that defining moment? Anyone want to share?
I
And
don't receive. Sorry, who's speaking?
oh, go ahead.
I thought someone else was speaking. I don't receive well, and I need to train myself better in receiving. And I can't put it down to anything in particular. Perhaps I got a glimpse of what it might be when I had little children that I gave affirmations of love to in front of my mother, and she said, be careful, don't do that too much. You don't want him to get big-headed. And I think that may be the reason, so she probably felt that way with her children too. So.
That's very interesting, and I bet that's a commonality that a lot of people have. So that's great. Anyone else want to share?
You know, Hasina,
Uh-huh.
when I make you a cup of tea
Yeah.
and you say to me, that was so sweet of you. And I go, I know.
That's my mom, for anyone who doesn't know. And yes, I do find it very sweet. And she receives, obviously.
A lot.
Yes. Yes, we know. Uh, and there's so many different ways of receiving. And Tom, I guess you could add to that because you, like, Tom has educated me in the most fascinating ways about how, with functional medicine, how we're always receiving through um, the body, how our cells receive, whether they choose to receive, whether they choose not to. And I love to hear that interpretation that you have because I really think it's fascinating, and everyone here needs to be exposed to that.
Well, thank you. Do you forgive me in advance for talking for 10 minutes without pausing?
Hey, you know I love listening to you talk.
I have two thoughts. The I know, yeah. I have a favorite phrase, which is living in the question mark. And the corollary of living in the question mark is turning the question mark into exclamation points, which in the statistics of success-oriented lifestyle walk is usually how we quote get things and how we succeed and how we get trophies and medals and rewards and stuff. And that's the social fabric that most of us grew up in, right? Get something. And there's a flip side to that, of course, which is turning the exclamation point to the question mark. Turn the thing that we know into question, right? So when Rashida responds with glee, I know, that's a heartfelt, that's what I would consider, and perfect is the wrong word, but authentic maybe is a good word, an authentic expression of something that she feels that in the moment is right there. Yeah. And in the world of, so I work, just tell you in 60 seconds, I wrote prescriptions for a lot of years, and I did a lot of that top down that I told you about, and I still can do it when it's time. But more and more, I love the inside out conversation. And for the past almost 15 years now, I have been on my own journey to learn more deeply what it means to engage with food as medicine conversations. I put the gut in order. There's an organ called the microbiome, which is the collective. It's the congress of bacteria and other small life, virus, parasites, fungus in the gut, which really does most of the metabolic work of the body. Most of the metabolic work of the body and the what we would call health and maintenance of the body doesn't happen with human tissue. It happens with the human DNA and structures, our Homo sapien DNA, in interaction with all of the other bugs, right? So I offer that just as a collaboration conversation to say we're constantly, Mother Nature is constantly recapitulating her patterns, yeah? And we're not meant to be isolated creatures. Isolation is fun for a lot of people, and it's rewarding for a lot of people, me included. And I love the the freedom where that sense of isolation can walk safely into the next thing, whatever the next thing is. Almost always that encompasses being engaged with the planet, right? So we're either engaging with, even if we're walking in the woods, we're engaging with lots of life. Yeah, we're breathing new air, we're taking new steps, even though our body might remember something about the gait and the posture that we're walking through. Really is a brand new step. So we're always learning. And what if we could bring I know? What if we could bring in the phrase I know, not as a past construct, not from, hey, I'm successful because I'm here and alive, right? Which is most of what the ego structure of the metabolism of the body is. Most of the success of the body, no matter whether we consider ourselves healthy or not healthy, we're still here and we're doing a pretty good job, right? We're still here. And the body's always, always, always learning. But in a place where there's chronic inflammation and a chronic scavenging, right? Just like we have scarcity mentalities in our minds and our hearts that come from fear. What if there was such a thing as an existential fear in the tissues, right? So you asked about cellular health, right? The regenerative capacity of the body is based on whether or not we can make 500 billion cells every 24 hours. That's actually what we do. We're always, always, always changing. And if the ego structure of the body, which translates into the physical structure of the body, is such that I'm recreating for yesterday's body, right? Here I am. Why wouldn't I do that, right? Why wouldn't I do the same thing? Why wouldn't I have the same argument with my boss? Why wouldn't I have the same story about the drivers, right? Why wouldn't I like that? And things that are working too. Why wouldn't I work out the same way? I worked out yesterday that way. I feel great now. I ate that yesterday, etc. But what if we could what if we could somehow surrender? And I think that's one of the really meaty pieces for me and Hasina is in this mind massage work is how can we let go of the emotional attachment to those things, which is again a healthy attachment, right? We all that's just the way things are. We have ideas about things, and they've worked. Here we are. What if we could actually say "I know" to the new thing that looks confronting? What if what if I could not be offended by the phone ringing in the background? What if I like that? It's interrupting my broadcast. How dare it? Right? And so you could take that into any arena. And I think that's the power of a healthy mind, body, spirit. And I didn't realize it. I actually went into neurology in the first place, almost accidentally, but I got lost because I was training to be what I thought was a psychiatrist, because I was very interested when they first started coming out with the SSRIs, the antidepressants and things, and they were coming out with chemicals that could affect this thing. It was fascinating to me, and I wanted to study them, and I also wanted to know how this thing in the world of psychobiology, neuropsychobiology, was affecting the body. It was a very old school, and it's still a very old school and hard to break dynamic. Same thing with the genetics. Here's the code. Here's the structure that the code structures for, and here's the behavior that's allowed because of the structure. Right? We have a very linear understanding of that, and that's not untrue. That structure is there, but it's also a tiny, tiny, tiny sliver of the reality of things, which is there are a lot of other structures there that end in this thing, in this behavior part. So now question is, well, how do we go backwards? What in our behavior, our interactions, our ability to say yes to life and be surprised, is there something that we can do to get back here to whatever the structure is? Because that's the game we have to play. We have to play in those playgrounds. And for me, it has come down to cellular health. It's come down to in my world, we can talk about this more deeply later, but the short version, I promise, is fat as a fuel source and lipid mobilization. So in that world of regenerating the physical body, mobilization of cholesterol and lipids is the holy grail of a metabolic competence, a body that actually can continue to repair itself. And in a body that can continue to repair itself, then whatever happens in real time, it says, yes, I receive you. It says, yes, thank you. It says, yes, I know you. I know you were coming. I know you, virus, were coming. I have what it takes to handle you, recognize you, mobilize my resources. And then that shrug that you were talking about, that a lot of people are not allowed to do, right? That happens immunologically too. We do an immunologic shrug, and we do a metabolic shrug, and we even do a shrug to trauma. We cut our fingers and heal in real time. So all of that as a precursor. When you have a body like that, then all of a sudden you've got a mind like that too, because the neurotransmitter fingerprint in the central nervous system says, yeah, there's no scarcity here. We might not have had enough dopamine here in this particular thing, but we have the resources to make it in the moment, right? Then all of a sudden we're walking in life and we're behaving in the moment. And in the moment, and that's, I think, part two of our conversation, right? We're talking about personal sovereignty. Am I making my decisions? In which case there's no victimhood. If I step into a situation that I know failed, and I know I took full responsibility for that behavior, that's a very good piece of information, right? That's not what normal people would call success, I think, in a lot of the paradigms that we use, but it's a very, very good piece of information. And then that gives me wisdom, right? But if for some reason I didn't know that I made the decision, and it looks like I made somebody else's decision, or I let somebody else come back in, then that victim mentality shows up, and there's a scarcity mentality, and why did I give myself away? So I think that's an exciting conversation that we've been having for a while too, is where do we dance in the place of, what's the quote right way to live on a spiritual path? Is it in a place of safety and comfort? Why wouldn't we attend to things that are going to bring us safety and comfort, right? Or do we step into a place where I'm making my decisions from the inside out?
Yeah, I think that is such an important point. where we relate the permission that the cells of our body give us. What permissions are they giving us? And we relate that to the mind, the spirit, because we're not in isolation. And I want to actually go into that. But before I do, I think I'd love to ask the group, anyone who wants to share, what is it that you haven't given yourself permission to do in any area? There is no right or wrong answer. But if you'd like to share, what haven't you given yourself permission to do, which you would love to give yourself permission to do? And if anyone wants to share, you've noticed I've muted you all just because of the background noise, but just unmute yourself. So if anyone wants to, feel free.
I want to ask a question first.
Uh-huh.
And I want to ask Tom. So Tom,
I received, yes, I know.
when we started getting to know each other, which was a number of months ago, you paid me a compliment about Hasina. And I said to you, I know, I raised her. So I'm curious to know, how did you receive that?
I wanted to know what you did. So, you know, being a scientist, of course, I always want to replicate the experiment. And I think there need to be more of her. Probably wanted to know what it was that you did.
No, you're not answering the question. I said, how did you receive that?
I think I probably received it wonderfully. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I remember you did. I think you received it wonderfully.
Hasina, I do think it's not just how we receive,
Mm-hmm.
it's also about how other people receive us.
Yeah, it is, but it's our thoughts about how other people receive us, because we can't be dependent on how other people receive us. We've got to be so secure in receiving what other people receive that it's okay, no matter how they receive us.
It makes me think of when you and Shamima say to me, Mom, how did you manage to say that to so-and-so? I would never do that.
Huh.
And yet I get it right.
It's age.
No, because I'm comfortable with who I am. And what I express is authentic. It comes from my heart. And I expect people to receive what I say as I would receive when they talk.
Yeah. So that is a great point, because when you're coming from that energy, then people do receive it. Yeah. Right. Anyone else want to share? If you do, just unmute yourself. And if not, oh, by the way, welcome. Yes, is someone speaking?
It was Carla. I just hello everyone. I decided to like put my red on. I forgot. I'm like, I want to put my red on, so I had to find something that was red. But I want to just say thank you to your mom for raising y'all. As she was just speaking, it just was just encouraging just to hear her. So I actually forgot what the question was, but I wanted to speak. I had something to speak. I'm like, I gotta find red. So could you repeat what the question was? Because I did have something to say, but I left it.
Haven't you given yourself permission yet for in your own life, but you want to give yourself permission to do, to be, to have, anything like that?
So look, in excitement, I forgot that quick. So I haven't given myself permission to really just go after fully the things that I love. And as I was listening to, I want to get it right. Okay, Dr. Tom, just that field excites me. And I didn't realize how much it excites me. And I have a block because I don't understand, I'm not allowing myself to understand the technical side of it. But hearing him speak lately, that's just been the motion. So it's like, stop being fearful. Go ahead and start studying the little pieces that you know, because it intrigues me. And when Dr. Tom was speaking, I'm like, okay, you can do this. No, you can't. I talk myself out of these things, but I love some of the things that he was saying, or just even being on your call now, or the other areas. It's like, okay, I can't do this. So it's that self-talk that stops me a lot of times. It's like, be quiet, close your mouth. Like, no, maybe you should open your mouth and tell yourself, stop talking, So those are some of the things. It's not that I'm, for everybody there, I'm not like constantly talking to myself out loud anyway. But I just wanted to share that because it's we allow ourselves to not do what's really important. So that was it for the moment.
Well, thank you so much, Carla. Tom, I know you look like you want to respond to that.
Yeah, sorry about that. Do I ever look like I don't want to respond to something?
No, you always look like you have a response, and I like that.
I have. Well, I can't wait to hear Carla's. The first thing that comes to mind is, first of all, yes, I can see it in your eyes. I can feel that energy. And this is a longer conversation, but you are head and shoulders above, far ahead of people who already have a construct and an understanding. Getting it intuitively first, and then going backwards into, the science, which is always wrong. The science is wrong. It doesn't mean it's bad or malintentioned, but by definition incomplete. We were just talking yesterday about how you look at Einstein and all these guys who dove very deeply into an understanding of things. Almost everybody in the world of quantum physics, and lots of biologists as well, and physiologists. You dive into your life, and then you realize pretty soon, and soon is 20 to 30 years, that you really don't know anything at all, right? And you move into a spiritual realm, right? You haven't wasted that quarter century yet, so you've gotten to a place where you can now be of service, right? There are all kinds of libraries, and we've all got voices in our head nonstop. It's the other funny thing is we pretend to have a capacity to stop the voices, but of course we can't, right? I think it's a powerful conversation. I honor you for your walk.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I join in that. I honor you too. And just for the new people, because I see there have been some new people signing on since we got started, just want to welcome you to the Mind Massage. This is a conversation that's going to be weekly, and this is the first of it. Dr. Tom Ackland and I are collaborating, and like I said earlier, it's really my honor to collaborate with Tom on this, and it's very interactive. Today is all about giving ourselves permission in mind, body, spirit in so many different ways. So we're just interacting and sharing. If at any time you'd like to share, you can type into the chat. I love Kathy typed step by step. Working through the process is hard for some of us. I frequently just want to jump to the end rather than experiencing the journey. And I was just saying to her in the chat, that's something I had to give myself permission for, to experience the journey. Because sometimes you're thinking about the results, and give yourself permission to unattach from the results, to just say, well, I'm unattached, and it's the journey that is the actual experience. So that's just a wonderful thing. I know that we don't have that much time available, but I'd love to walk you through an exercise to give yourself permission in whatever way. So perhaps if we all just just give ourselves a minute. So I always believe it's all about unbecoming who we are not, because we start off as babies. We know as babies that we are worthy. We are worthy of just being there. No baby ever thinks, well, should I ask for food or should I ask for a hug? They expect themselves to, they expect what they ask for to be satisfied. That's just how it is, because that's how high their self-worth is. And gradually these babies become children, and as children, the village that raises us has an influence and an impact, and we start taking on their fears and insecurities. And as adults, we get to a place where we define ourselves by circumstances and by other people's expectations, and we don't give ourselves permission to just live our truth. And this is all about how to unbecome who you are not and align with your truth. And if you don't know what your truth is, to first find it. Who am I? What do I like? And that's a huge conversation in itself. But I'd like to walk you through the step of what I call empathy. It's one of the building blocks of unbecoming. Um, so what we do now is just taking a deep breath. And if you want to close your eyes, that's fine. But think of a time in your life, whether it was yesterday or whether it was when you were 3 years old, it doesn't matter when you felt self assured, you felt happy, you felt just free spirited and carefree. Um, an example for me would be, I remember when I was in junior school, I was about 10, and it was after exams, and we were just kind of, I just remember skipping over to the pool and just felt so like myself and free spirited and carefree. So, whatever example you pull up, and it doesn't matter when it is in your life, and you just, or maybe you felt accomplished and you felt just so confident, so just bring up that example. The details of the example are not that important. What is important is that feeling. Recreate that feeling that you felt. So just take a deep breath, and what was that feeling? Was it freedom? Was it joy? Was it just a feeling of I can? Whatever that feeling was, just let it be with you and just take it in. And then let that feeling get bigger. Again, it's not about any details, it's about that feeling. Now, I call this empathy because usually when we empathize with someone, we're thinking compassion when someone's in an unfortunate situation. And that is fine. That is a good thing to do, to be able to reach out because you know how they're feeling. But here we're reaching out on the flip side to someone who's feeling joy, and we know how they experience joy, and that someone is us because we can relate to it. We were in that body, we were in that space where we can relate to when we felt that joy, that carefree, free spiritedness. So just going back there and creating that feeling. And it's from that place that we can give ourselves permission, whatever it is. When I ask that question, what do you need to give yourself permission for that you haven't yet? What is it? Whatever that thing is or was, bring that feeling that you just created and bring it into the situation of giving yourself permission. And right here in this moment, give yourself permission to do whatever it is you wanted to do, whatever you wanted to be, whatever you wanted to say. Just give yourself permission. Let that confidence, that joy, that free spiritedness, that feeling of I can, that self assuredness, let it just flood your being so you know that you're giving yourself permission and you respect that giving of permission, and just be with that. And you can open your eyes now. And that is the whole thing about giving ourselves permission, that we can be in that space and we come from that feeling of who we truly are at our core. Because when we're connected to our heart, our center, inner being, source, God, whatever you define that as, that when you're connected to that center, now that is when you feel happy and you feel most like you. And that is when we can just give ourselves permission. So that's the exercise. Anyone want to just quickly, in a sentence, maybe respond about how that exercise was for them, or if they had any aha moments? You don't have to. We don't all have aha moments with everything, but if anyone wants to, feel free to unmute yourself.
I had a fun moment. I was 16 years old. I had seen the pitch. There were two guys on base. I had seen the previous pitch like it was the biggest baseball I'd ever seen in my life. And I was standing at the plate feeling like I can do anything with this next ball. I can do anything. I can see the spin. I can know how. And sure enough, it went into left field. And I came into second base like, yeah, I'm supposed to be here. It was, and it was just that feeling of I can see. And it wasn't so much about the result. It was like, wow, okay, I can see. I can do this.
That feeling of intuition. And it's such a huge conversation, this whole permission thing. And Tom, I don't know how you feel about it. Perhaps we could do a part 2 focusing on a different aspect and just going into a kind of different aspect of this. What are your thoughts on that?
I think there are lots of different ways to see the world. Yeah, I think I'd love to hear everybody's feedback. And
Yeah.
since we're talking about sensory capacity, right, as a bidirectionality, we started talking about voice and expression as something that we either generate and out it goes, but similarly as a co-creative community, right? We are just the distilled messages of the people around us, right? So whether or not you think my baseball story is relevant for you, you helped me create it, right? Everybody who's listening and was waiting for the end of the sentence as something else came out. So yeah, we could do it with all different sensory capacities.
Yes, that sounds great. I was just, while you were speaking, I was listening to you, but I was actually scrolling through my messages to that song that you sent me. What was it? Eric Church, Through My Ray-Bans, and that was all about seeing things through. Well, you can correct me if I'm wrong, because I listened to it really quickly, but seeing things through other people's eyes and also seeing things differently. So it's also giving you permission to do that. And I think when we look at everything in life, every situation, then we can actually look at, well, how do we give ourselves permission to receive that? So it is such a broad conversation. Yeah.
I want to know how you listen to something quickly. How do you do that?
Well, you know that I was a little flustered earlier, so it was a lovely song to listen to, but I didn't go into the analysis and the depth of it, which I like to do. So,
well, like it took me 3.5 minutes to listen to the song. How quickly can you do it? How long did it take you?
I paused before the end of the song so I could listen to all the lyrics, and then I had to call you. So, yeah. I just gave it a pause before the end. But I see our time is sort of drawing to a close, and I just want to say to everyone that let's continue the conversation in the Facebook group, the Mind Massage. If you're not a member yet, then just request to be a member. Just go to facebook.com/the Mind Massage or search for it in the search box on Facebook and just be a part of it, and we can just continue this conversation. I was meant to be streaming it, and there are all these weird settings that I haven't had a chance to look at, and for some reason it's not streaming. I apologize for that. But I will put the YouTube link on there, so if anyone wants to listen to a repeat, or if your friends want to, please just invite them to join in the conversation, because this is all about creating a better self, a better world. Um, and we'd love to have anyone you know who thinks that, who you think this would be valuable for, this conversation, bring them in, because we want it to be a conversation among all of us. Collectively, we can create so much. And I think I have talked a lot. So I will put on the meme on the screen, but that we started with, because some people came late. But Tom, I think I should give the floor back to you to say whatever you want to say.
What do I want to say? Did we look at the chat and see if anybody has questions?
Somebody asked about mind massage, and there was a question mark.
Yeah, Jana asked about mind massage. Tom, I think you should go there. Why mind massage? And we never explained that.
Well, it's a perfect question from the perfect woman. Without blowing your cover, Jana, I honor you, and you don't have to tell your story, but talk about somebody who has claimed sovereignty, right, of her life and stepping into her personal responsibility. I'll just tell you real quickly. It was 15 years ago that I was 40 and miserable and looking like I was 60 and knew I was in the wrong place. I didn't know why. I didn't know why. It was the normal American story, right? But working 1,000 hours a week, trying to live in DC and New York and see my son and wife and blah, 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 right? Old story. I didn't know that other people had been making my choices for me, right? And luckily I had what I thought was what everybody else thought was a midlife crisis. I look back on it now as it was a great awakening. And everything that I had, just when I mentioned at the opening here about my interest in neuropsychiatry and psychoimmunology, I had sort of fallen into those as sciences, but I wasn't able to see any real world reflection in my life. All of a sudden, I started to see some little glimmers of, wow, my brain really does control my body, and vice versa. There's a two-way conversation there. And mind massage is, first of all, putting the machine in order. So I work in metabolic competence, right? I work to put this thing in order, but it's a working competence. It's a structural competence. It is just like having a great car in the garage. You can build the car and tune it up and stuff, and it's ready to roll. But it's really not functional until you get out on the road and see what it's up to. And there is the relationship, the mind-body relationship is, we have an integrity, which is conversations in our head, right? To go back to Carla's beautiful conversation, we have our thing, and our thing doesn't change very much when we're in a place where we're in the garage, the car is in the garage. In a chronic inflammatory state, whether it be from toxins or people, all of a sudden, there we are. And this is the body. Nothing wrong with that. Most people live like that. You can live 70 or 80 years like that. But then all of a sudden you find a conversation, I think, that's a little bit more flexible. Right? Start being able to move a little bit, wiggle a little bit. And, and I also happen to be a yoga student for 15 years. God tricked me into buying a yoga studio with a buddy of mine, by the way, which turned into two others, which turned into a very different career for me and gave me the courage to step out doing some other things in mind body. And that flexibility of tissue, right? The flexibility of the tissue is dependent on the metabolic competence. You put the body in shape where it actually can mobilize the resources, then all of a sudden you've got, just like we've got the new version of ourselves waiting for us tomorrow if we can navigate the issues, we've got the new version of our physical body if we can navigate the tissues. And most of the time we can't. Just the tissues remember, right? Classic, body keeps the score, that whole thinking. Beautiful mind-body practitioners all over the world now speaking that language. And it's exciting. I mean, part of me sometimes thinks, how did I waste 30 years and why did I get so far behind the power curve and I can't do it now? And, people like Carla are way ahead of me. And but I'm ready to keep going. And now there is a new conversation for mind health that I don't think it's ever meant to disregard neurobiological integrity, right? We still want a brain that works, but it's much like the structure of the body. You can put the neurotransmitter fingerprint in order, and it doesn't know anything yet. It's simply capable, right? It is mandatory as a start point, or it looks like it is. Then all of a sudden, out we go into our social navigating, and then we learn stuff, and we learn new habits, and we have a tiny bit of courage because all of a sudden we've got a body and mind that can respond and come back to center, right? Can recover in real time that we talked about before. We can recover in real time, and so that thing that was outside the comfort zone isn't a challenge anymore. It's not a threat, right? It's something that it's a known level of stretch, you could call it, right? And then you come back. I think that's the brilliance of the Truth Walker work too. I resonated with your work so quickly, so early, and there was language like that I wanted in the scientific fields, right? I wanted evidence and I wanted proof and I wanted mathematical constructs, and right, it doesn't work like that. It's something more than that. It actually does work like that, and ... right? But there's something more. It just speaks intuitively. It speaks intuitively, and then the heart says, yes, I accept, I get it. And then you step in, and then you realize, going backwards, oh yeah, this thing I knew last week is applicable here. It would become something else.
Yeah, I love that. And I must say, when I did my Truth Walker, and I just so love that you did all the exercises in my book. It was amazing to just watch you walk through that. But I love that your conversations about the body and the cells and giving permission and looking at things differently, it's so added a dimension to my understanding as well of how do we give ourselves permission through mind, through body, through spirit. And the body so mimics the other two, the mind and the spirit, and vice versa, that we're just beings, and there's no mystery as to how the body works or the mind or the spirit. We know now that we actually create our thoughts. We give ourselves permission to step into new situations, to step out of our comfort zone, and we do that with the mind when we think new things. We do that with the spirit when we feel connected and we're able to just create the space to evolve. And we do that with the body. And I mean, just Tom just puts it so beautifully. So there's so many areas, but they all mimic each other, and I just love how they work in tandem. And once we're able to understand that, then we are able to evolve faster and not be in a place of pain, whether it's bodily pain, mind, spirit. We were able to step out and move forward and just step into our light. And I love that. And on that note, I just want to share the meme that we shared at the beginning for those people who weren't there. And this was what we talked about. This is what Tom and I actually, I think it sums up what we've been discussing, speaking aloud. Do we allow our mind to speak aloud? Do we allow our body? Do we allow our spirit to speak aloud? And do we listen? Because speaking aloud involves listening too. So that's what it's all about. And I will just quickly stop the share. And I
One
guess
quick thought on that too. Maybe this falls in the disclaimer category, but none of what we're offering is right or wrong. And I think that's part of the freedom that people get is we all find a path, right? But it's that thing that Kathy wrote in the chat about being on the journey. And we all have a say. We all can give ourselves permission to either resonate with or not resonate with whatever that thing is over there that looks like the expert. Right? And there's probably a reason that the expert, whatever that message is in our lives in the first place. But it might be a path to follow, and it might be a path to learn from. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about people who speak this language is we also give ourselves permission to not really know a thing. Right? Doesn't mean we don't do stuff and know stuff and tell people stuff and grab people around the neck sometimes and make them do stuff. Right? We still do that, but I think there's a beautiful peace of mind that goes along with knowing that it's just we're one voice. And I think what you spoke earlier about the compassion, that sense of compassion with that exercise, when we know we're one voice individually, right? That sense of expression becomes a hologram of expression. And that person might be saying something to me and I might just not understand it, right?
I love that. And when we give ourselves permission, it's amazing how easy it is to give other people permission too, to just either not understand us or to just be able to receive how they're feeling and be able to respond, um, just be able to respond and give them permission to do nothing. Tom, very much like you did earlier, and I said to you, I've got this to do and I've got this to do, and you said, no, you go do that. I'll take care of this. And it was such a calming experience because I knew that we're just coming into this conversation and it's going to be a calm conversation and whatever's going to happen, happens. And it's been beautiful. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who's been on this call. I always think the people who are supposed to be in a certain place where we've just put into the universe or whatever it is you believe, where you've put out there that this is something I want to evolve through, or this is something I want to dive deeper into, and you're in a certain conversation or in a certain place at just the right time. And that's how I see this with everyone's collective energy. And it's a beautiful energy. And I see in the chat, yeah, let's see. Kathy, for some, speaking aloud takes courage. Thank you for creating a safe space for all to feel that courage and begin to speak their truth aloud. Thank you, Kathy. And I know that's what you stand for as well in the work that you do. You're such an important stakeholder in education, and that's what you do. And Sonia, that was a completely beautiful message. Kathy, I agree completely. Oh, thank you, Sonia. That's very sweet. I received that. Yeah, so with that, I guess our first conversation comes to a close unless anyone wants to say something. And Tom, I don't know if you want to say any last words.
Thank you to you and Shamima and Rashida for doing this and putting it in motion. Feels like a great gift.
Thank you.
Can't wait to know everybody.
It's been amazing. So,
and I was kidding about your mom being able to replicate the experiment. You are unreplicatable.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
She deserves a break. She actually deserves a break too, so she doesn't need to do that again.
You can quit while you're ahead.
So next week, I want to respond to what Kathy said, if I may.
Yeah. Yes, or about what Kathy said about what, because it might be a great starting point.
About it takes courage.
Tom, I think that's a great place
to speak out aloud.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got a starting point for next week, and everyone, you're invited for next week. And yeah, and please invite any friends who you feel this could be valuable to. You know, the more people whose collective energy is here, the better. We can just create better selves, a better world. And let's see, I'm just looking in the chat. Kathy, I wish everyone a restful weekend that provides the recoupment you require. Thank you. I think we all need that. Thank you for being here, Zorika. Jana, the YouTube video link, well, I'll upload this. Pardon?
I just sent it. The song that you were, if she was asking about the song you were talking about.
Oh, okay. Okay. We'll definitely post that. I don't know how to get it. Well, actually, I'll post it now if you want to just hang on a second. I'm just quickly going to my messages and I'll get the link off there.
Or Jana, were you asking what the YouTube, this conversation was posted on Hasina's YouTube channel? I think maybe that's what she's asking.
Oh, okay.
But is that right? We're going to post this on your channel, yeah?
Yes, actually, I'm thinking that we should probably just create a mind massage channel so everyone can. I'll do that tomorrow. Just give me some time. And as for the song, if that's what you were also asking about, I'll post that in the Facebook group. As you can see, I multitask very badly, so I'm not able to be here and get the song.
I got the link, but thank you. That's a good idea to post it for everyone to share, see or hear. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. Thanks for your message, Zorika, Sonia, Carla. Thank you, Sonia. Yeah. And just want to say thank you for being here and wish you all a wonderful weekend. And Tom, thank you for being a wonderful partner in the mind massage.
It is my honor. I appreciate being here. Have a great day, everybody.
You too. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, Hasina.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.